All right, everybody, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be getting into something I know a lot of you are interested in, which is budgeting. But don't worry, we're not going to make it boring or complicated. We're going to be taking a deep dive into this source called 7 Steps to Create a Monthly Budget, to pull out the most valuable, actionable tips and insights that'll really help you take control of your money. So get ready to ditch the stress boost, those savings, and finally achieve all those financial goals you've been dreaming of. You know, like that dream vacation or finally being able to retire early.
I think a lot of people hear the word budgeting and immediately think restriction, but it's really the opposite. It's more about making informed choices and having the power to decide where your money goes so you can focus on what truly matters to you.
Absolutely. I like to think of it as empowerment, not deprivation. Our source actually dives into some of those common budgeting myths that hold people back. What are some of the ones that stood out to you?
Yeah, one of the biggest myths is that budgeting is only for people who are struggling financially. But the reality is budgeting is a valuable tool for anyone, regardless of income, who wants to be more intentional with their money. It's like having a financial GPS to guide you towards your goals.
I love that analogy. And speaking of goals, the source really emphasizes how budgeting can help you achieve them right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the key takeaways is the importance of setting SMART goals. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It's not enough to just say, I want to save more. You need to define exactly how much you want to save, by when, and for what purpose.
That makes so much sense. Having that clarity makes your goals seem less daunting and way more achievable. Plus, when you know where you're going, it's a lot easier to stay motivated along the way.
Exactly. And speaking of motivation, the source also talks about the mental and emotional benefits of budgeting, like reducing financial stress and improving overall well-being.
I can definitely see that. When you feel like you're in control of your finances, it takes a huge weight off your shoulders. So where does this journey of financial empowerment actually begin?
Well, the source says it all starts with understanding your income. And that might seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people don't have a clear picture of their total income from all sources.
That's true. So how does the source break down the different types of income?
They talk about 3 main categories: primary income, secondary income, and passive income.
Okay, so let's unpack those a bit. Primary income, that's basically your main gig, right? The money you earn from your job or your business.
Exactly. That's your salary, your wages, or your freelance income. It's like the foundation of your financial picture.
Got it. Now, what about those side hustles everyone's always talking about? Where do those fit in?
That's where secondary income comes, in any income you earn outside of your main source of income. So it could be from a part-time job, a side business, or maybe even selling stuff online or something like that.
So it's all about diversifying those income streams. I like it. Now, what about passive income? That always sounds so intriguing.
Passive income is the dream, right? It's money you earn without actively working for it, like rental income dividends from investments, or royalties from a book or a song.
It's like having your money work for you while you sleep.
Exactly. But building passive income streams often takes time and effort. It's not always as easy as it sounds.
That's true. It's important to have a solid foundation with your primary and secondary income before jumping into those more advanced strategies. Speaking of foundations, the source also emphasizes the importance of understanding the difference between gross and net income.
Oh yeah, that's crucial. Gross income is your total income before any deductions. But net income is what you actually take home after taxes and other withholdings. It's that net income number you need to base your budget on because it represents your real spending power.
Right. Taxes can really make a difference in how much money you actually have to work with each month.
They really can.
Yeah.
And it's not just taxes. You might also have deductions for health insurance, retirement contributions, student loan payments, and things like that. So knowing your net income gives you that clear picture of your actual financial resources.
Oh, so we've mapped out our income streams. What's the next step on this budgeting journey?
Now it's time to get real about where all that hard-earned money is actually going.
Time to face those spending habits head on. I have a feeling this is where things might get a little uncomfortable for some people.
It can be a little eye-opening for sure, but the source breaks down expenses into 3 main categories: fixed, variable, and discretionary.
Okay, let's break it down. Starting with fixed expenses, those are like the non-negotiables, right?
Exactly. Think rent or mortgage payments, car payments, insurance premiums, and those lovely student loan bills.
Those are the bills we all love to hate. But what about those expenses that fluctuate from month to month?
Those would be your variable expenses like groceries, utilities, gas, and all those tempting little impulse buys that can sneak up on us.
You mean like that extra latte I just had to have this morning?
Maybe. The key with variable expenses is to track them closely and look for those sneaky areas where you might be able to cut back without making any major sacrifices.
It's all about finding those areas where we're spending without even realizing it.
Exactly. And then we've got the fun stuff, discretionary expenses. This is where you have the most control, things like dining out, entertainment, travel, and those treat-yourself moments.
So it's not about cutting out the fun stuff altogether. It's about making conscious choices and finding that sweet spot between enjoying life and staying on track financially.
That's the key. Budgeting isn't about deprivation. It's about aligning your spending with your values and priorities.
Now that's something I can get behind. So once we have a good understanding of our income and expenses, what's the next step on this budgeting adventure?
Now comes the exciting part, setting those financial goals that will give your budget real purpose and direction.
Let's talk dreams and aspirations. This is where we get to envision the life we want to create, right?
Absolutely. And the source really stresses the importance of having a mix of both short-term and long-term goals.
Okay, so let's break down those goals. Starting with short-term goals, what are some examples of those?
Short-term goals are things you can achieve within a relatively short time frame, maybe within a year or two, like paying off a credit card and building up your emergency fund or saving for a vacation.
I love those short-term goals. They keep you motivated and give you a sense of accomplishment along the way.
Exactly. Those small wins can really boost your confidence and keep that momentum going as you work towards those bigger long-term goals.
So then what are some examples of those long-term goals?
Long-term goals typically require more time planning and discipline. They often span several years or even decades, like saving for retirement, buying a home, or maybe investing in your education or a business venture.
It's all about shaping your future, and I imagine those long-term goals often require a more strategic approach, right?
Absolutely. And while those goals might seem far off, it's super important to start planning and saving for them early on to really harness the power of compound interest.
Compound interest, that magical force that can turn those small, consistent contributions into a sizable nest egg over time.
Exactly. And the source does a great job of emphasizing the importance of prioritizing those long-term goals, even when you're tempted to spend on those more immediate wants and needs.
It's about playing the long game and setting yourself up for a brighter financial future.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting? The source actually talks about a goal-setting technique I found super helpful called reverse goal setting.
Reverse goal setting. I've never heard of that. Tell me more.
Okay, so instead of starting with your current situation and working towards your goals, reverse goal setting involves starting with your ultimate goal and then working backward to figure out what steps you need to take to achieve it.
That's so clever. It's like mapping out your path to success in reverse.
Exactly. And what I love about this technique is that it makes you think realistically about the time, effort, and resources it'll actually take to reach that goal.
No more wishful thinking. It's all about concrete steps and a solid plan. So we've mapped out our income streams. We've set our sights on our financial goals. What's the next step in this exciting journey of mastering our monthly budget?
Now it's time to unleash your inner artist and craft that budget plan, the framework that's going to guide your spending and help you make those financial dreams a reality.
All right, I'm ready to get creative. But with so many different budgeting methods out there, where do we even start?
Well, the source does a fantastic job of breaking down some of the most popular methods, each with its own unique approach and benefits.
I'm all ears. Let's dive into those budgeting methods and find the perfect fit for our listeners. Okay, so there's like a whole menu of budgeting methods out there, huh?
Exactly. It's not one size fits all. You get to pick and choose what works best for your style and your goals.
That's actually kind of exciting. So what are some of the popular methods that our source talks about?
Well, one that a lot of people have heard of is the 50-30-20 method. It's all about percentages. 50% of your after-tax income goes to needs like housing and bills. Then 30% goes towards wants, things like entertainment and dining out. And the final 20% goes towards savings and debt repayment.
Okay, that sounds pretty straightforward, but what if my needs actually cost more than 50% of my income?
Yeah, that's a good point. Those percentages are really just guidelines. You can adjust them to fit your own situation. The main idea is to get a sense of where your money is going and then see if there are areas you can tweak.
So it's more about the big picture than being super strict with the numbers. What are some other methods?
Another popular one is the zero-based budget. Have you heard of that one?
I think so, but remind me how it works.
So basically, you allocate every single dollar of your income to a specific category, like housing, groceries, savings, fund money, etc. The goal is to have $0 left over at the end of the month.
Oh, I see. So everything has a job.
Exactly.
That sounds kind of intense, but I can see how it would really help you avoid overspending.
Yeah, it definitely takes more effort, but it can be super effective.
So we've got the percentage-based method and the zero-based method. What if I'm somewhere in between wanting simplicity and wanting total control?
Well, there's always the envelope system.
Yeah.
You'd divide your cash into separate envelopes labeled with different categories. Once an envelope is empty, that's it. You can't spend any more in that category until the next month.
I've actually heard of that one. It seems pretty visual and hands-on.
It is. It's a good way to stay mindful of your spending. And for some people, having that physical cash in hand can make a big difference in how they think about their spending.
It's like giving each spending category its own little boundary.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about percentages zeroing out and envelopes. Are there any other budgeting methods we should mention?
Well, this source also mentions incremental budgeting,
Hmm.
but it's not as commonly used these days.
How does that one work?
Basically, you start with your previous year's budget and then make adjustments based on inflation changes to your income or goal and stuff like that. It can work well for people with pretty stable income and expenses, but it might not be ideal if you're making big changes or trying to really shake things up.
Got it. So it sounds like there's no one right way to budget. It's all about finding what works best for you and your unique situation.
Exactly. The goal is to find a system that helps you feel empowered and in control, not restricted and stressed out.
Okay, so once we've chosen our budgeting method, are there any tools or resources that can make this whole process a little easier?
Definitely. Our source talks about a bunch of different options, starting with budgeting apps. I bet you've heard of some of those.
Oh, yeah, there are so many apps these days. What are some of the benefits of using a budgeting app?
Well, they can be really helpful for tracking your spending and staying on top of your budget. A lot of them connect to your bank accounts and credit cards, so they can automatically categorize your transactions. Some apps even provide personalized insights and recommendations based on your spending patterns.
Wow, that sounds pretty cool. It's like having a personal finance assistant right in your pocket.
It kind of is.
But are there any downsides to using budgeting apps?
Well, some people are wary about sharing their financial info with a third party. Yeah, it's always smart to do your research and choose a reputable app with strong security measures.
Yeah, data privacy is super important. What if I'm not really into the whole app thing? Are there any other options?
Of course. You can always go old school and use a spreadsheet. It's a little more hands-on, but you get a lot of control over how you organize and visualize your data.
I have to admit, I do love a good spreadsheet. It's so satisfying to see those numbers lined up neatly.
I hear ya. And spreadsheets are super customizable. You can create charts, graphs, pivot tables, whatever you need to get a clear picture of your finances.
So we've got budgeting methods and tools all figured out. What's next on our journey to financial mastery?
Now it's time to launch that budget into action. Let's talk about implementation.
All right, so we've talked about creating a budget, picking the right method, and even finding some cool tools to help us stay organized. But now comes the real challenge, actually sticking to the plan and making it work in real life. Any tips for our listeners who are feeling a little overwhelmed by this whole implementation thing?
Well, first of all, I'd say be kind to yourself. Budgeting is a skill, and it takes time and practice to get it right. Don't beat yourself up if you slip up or overspend every now and then. Just acknowledge it, adjust, move on.
Yeah, that's so important. It's all about progress, not perfection. Right?
Exactly. And one thing that can really help with implementation is to automate as much as possible. Set up automatic transfers for your savings and bill payments. So you don't even have to think about it.
Automation, the magic of the modern world. That can definitely take some of the mental load off.
It really can. And another thing that can help is to find an accountability buddy, someone you can check in with regularly to share your progress and challenges.
That's a great idea. Having that support system can make a big difference, especially when you're first starting out.
It really can. And remember, budgeting isn't just about numbers. It's also about your mindset and your relationship with money. So if you're struggling with negative thoughts or beliefs about money, don't be afraid to seek help from a financial therapist or counselor.
That's such a great point. Sometimes we need a little extra support to address those deeper issues that might be holding us back. Now, our source also talks about the importance of regularly reviewing and adjusting your budget. How often should we be revisiting our plan and making tweaks?
Well, I recommend checking in with your budget at least once a month, but you can do it more often if you feel like it. The key is to stay engaged and make sure your budget is still aligned with your goals and priorities.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot between consistency and flexibility, right?
Absolutely. Life is constantly changing, so your budget should be able to adapt as well.
That makes a lot of sense. So as we wrap up our deep dive into mastering your monthly budget, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to our listeners who are ready to take control of their financial futures?
I'd say start small and focus on building one good habit at a time. Don't try to overhaul your entire financial life overnight. Just pick one area you want to improve and focus on making consistent progress.
That's great advice. It's all about those small steps that lead to big changes over time. Well, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the world of budgeting. I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm sure our listeners have too.
Me too. It's been a pleasure exploring these concepts with you and with everyone listening.
So, to our amazing listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey of financial empowerment. We hope you feel inspired and motivated to create the financial future you deserve. Remember, budgeting's a journey, not a destination. So be kind to yourself, celebrate your wins, learn from your mistakes, and keep moving forward. Until next time, happy budgeting.